Hello and thanks for listening to Acting Related, the MySite.actor podcast. I'm your host, Frank Prendergast, and my guest today is actor and acting coach Pauline O'Driscoll. Pauline has a multitude of screen and theatre credits. You can see her playing Mary in Gerard Barrett's Smalltown, which is currently available on the Virgin Media Player. She plays Joan in Austen Smithard's Busman's Holiday, which I think you can rent from Amazon, and it's also on Amazon Prime, but not in Ireland as far as I know. And as soon as we are allowed back into theatres, Pauline will be organising a tour of her one-woman show, Seven Ages of Mam, which she co-wrote with Mark Evans and which was nominated for Best New Play in the Brighton Fringe Festival. But today we are going to be talking all about Uta Hagen, so let's chat. Pauline, thank you so much for joining me for a chat. We've been chatting recently because I've been doing some work on your website. So we've been talking a bit about Uta Hagen, and I have to admit, I knew the name Uta Hagen, and I have seen her books, but I have not read them. But I think my mum has her books on her. My mum has this extensive drama library. It's kind of incredible. So I've seen the name, but I honestly don't know a huge amount about her. So I thought it'd be brilliant to have you on to have a chat about Uta Hagen because you actually trained with her.
Hi, Frank. Thanks a million for having me on. I'm delighted and excited to be here, especially having listened to all your podcasts and all the fabulous people you've had on.
Cool.
So I'm a little overwhelmed at the thought of following their footsteps. But anyway, I'll do my best. Yes, I trained with Uta Hagen, and she's hugely well known in the States, and I realise not as well known here, although people, actors usually do seem to have one of her books.
Right.
She wrote two extraordinary acting textbooks that are still used in drama schools, I think, around the world. I think they're even used. I think somebody recently told me that they had been they used her book here in CIT or UCC. I'm not sure. Right. But she wrote two. The first one was called Respect for Acting, and that title, that's just brilliant, basically, as far as I'm concerned. And that is actually one of the most important things she taught me and everybody else that she taught, is respect for the art form of acting.
Right.
Now, she then went on, that was the first book she wrote, and then she went on to write a second one, which she called A Challenge for the Actor, which, when she was writing that, she considered it vastly superior to the first one. And so when I started studying with her, it was just a challenge for the actor that we worked from.
Right. And so just to contextualize it, so because I literally know the name. Okay. You're like, who is she? So I know, exactly. Yeah.
Like, who is Uta Hagen? Okay, so she basically, she was an actress, an award-winning three Tony Awards, an Obie, Drama Critics Awards, actress. She, like, when you look at the career, dear God, she made her theatrical debut playing Nina in The Seagull. That's what she started with. Then right. She got her first Tony for the role in The Country Girl, Odette's The Country Girl. That was her Broadway debut. And then her second Tony that she won was for originating the role of Martha in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which is just nice. An absolute favourite of mine. Oh my God, just genius. And actually, as an aside, the original audio recording of that production with Uta Hagen is available on YouTube, free to listen to. And it is brilliant. It is oh my God, it's genius is what it is. I mean, you're like, oh yeah, I can see why they gave her the Tony for that. Later on, she won another. She was awarded another Tony Award for like lifetime achievement, and she was this huge acting star, really. Right. And then she married, her second marriage, she married a chap called Herbert Burkoff. You're like, who the hell is Herbert Burkoff? Well, he was an actor, and she met him. I think they were working on Othello together. And he is the one that encouraged her to start teaching.
Right.
And that was 1947. And I think now I've never seen this written anywhere, but 1947 is also the year that she was blacklisted, the McCarthyism. So yes, because she had allegedly, I wasn't there, so I don't know, had an affair with an actor called Paul Robeson. And he was considered to be a communist or to have communist leanings or whatever. And so therefore, Uta, along with lots of other names, was blacklisted. So like that's actually the reason why she didn't have the movie career that you would have.
That's fascinating.
So because we're like, okay, well, if she's such this big deal actor, how come I never heard of her? I've never seen any of her movies or whatever. And he said, well, she didn't even get to make a movie until she was like 66 or something.
Wow.
So and I actually like a lot of that obviously happened way before my time. Yeah, I'm not that old. So she, by the time I met her, Herbert was actually dead. So he had died in 1990, Herbert Burkoff. So she had gone to the Herbert Burkoff studio and started teaching there in his studio.
I see. Okay, so HB, that's what HB is.
Exactly, HB Studio, Herbert Burkoff Studio. They're still going in New York to this day. Fantastic school. It's where I trained. And when when Herbert wanted her to teach, she was like, but I'm not a teacher, Herbert. And he's like, no, I want you to share what it is you've learned and experienced.
Right.
So this is one of the things I love about the HB Studio is, so all of the faculty at HB Studio are working practitioners in whatever the field is. And when you signed up for classes at HB Studio, you signed up knowing that, you're signed up with Frank Prendergast, but, if Frank Prendergast is going to be doing a play on Broadway, then, maybe Pauline O'Driscoll is taking over teaching Frank Prendergast's class.
Right.
And then Pauline might be going on Broadway and Frank will be coming back or whatever.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's how she started teaching. And that's why, and then so she's an actress, teacher. She's like revered in New York. The list of people, it's a who's who, the people she has trained. Your Al Pacino's, your Robert De Niro's, your Sigourney Weaver, Whoopi Goldberg, Amanda Peet, Jack Lemmon. Right. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And I always like to put "and me" at the end of that list because, it's not often you get to throw your name into a list like that. So, yeah, it's and the people who have trained with her hold her in very, very high regard.
Sure.
As do I.
And do you know, so I know there is an Uta Hagen technique, and I know that you teach it. But what I'm curious about is, do you happen to know, when she was asked to teach, did she then come up with the technique like as a teacher, or did she examine the technique that she had developed as an actor and then begin to teach that? Do you know what I mean?
As always, Frank, that's an excellent question. And the thing is, I wasn't there.
Sure.
I don't actually know the order of events, but I do know that Respect for Acting came out, which was the book, the first of the two books that came out after she started teaching. But I think it was a way for her to share what had become her methodology. Like,
Sure.
so she was already sharing her methodology by teaching it, and now she was putting pen to paper, trying to put it in steps that an actor could actually apply themselves, work it out. And so what is her technique? I can hear you saying, what is her technique is, it's basically, if you really kind of boil it down, it is like how to be truthful in imaginary circumstances. Now, she had started off in Respect for Acting saying how to be realistic in imaginary circumstances. And then she said, I've read somewhere that she was in the horrors then, when she'd see some performance or something, and the actor would be claiming to have been using Uta's approach. And she's like, but no, that's not what I meant at all. Which is why she then wrote a challenge for the actor to make it really clear what she meant, because there's a huge difference between being realistic and being truthful. Being realistic means I have to make an entrance stage left and sweaty, having run up the stairs despite my bad left hip, right? Now, to do that realistically, what do? You run up and down the stairs from the stage door to the whatever a few times, and then enter actually out of breath. That's okay. That's realistic, but you can't deliver your lines, and you're probably going to pass out from hyperventilation or something.
Right.
What we need to do is to be able to make that entrance, like, truthfully. How do I recreate as if I have run up and down the stairs, as if I have a sore hip, as if it's been raining outside, and behave truthfully in those imaginary circumstances?
Okay, that's really interesting. So, like, in that example, what are we talking about there in terms of that truthfulness? Are we talking about, are we talking about certain, like, physical things that would be truthful to that circumstance? Are we talking about the emotional truthfulness of the scene rather than those physical circumstances? Or is it a mix of all of the above?
All of the above.
Okay.
Go to the top of the class. All of the all of the now, but you see, the beauty of Uta's technique is that, as she devised it, she broke it down, and she basically broke it down into 10 exercises, which I actually have sort of broken down into 12 lessons. But I've taken something from her first book as well, because I think it's too important to leave there, and that's called 3 Entrances. I'll get back to it. But truthfulness. What is the truthfulness of making that entrance that we just described? And when I say truthfulness, I don't mean like, that the audience can think, I believe them, but that the actor has the truthfulness for themselves, that the actor can believe their circumstances to be real, so that they can have that a moment where it feels like the fourth wall, the fourth side has come down, and that we are seeing a private moment.
Right.
But in the example I gave, for example, you would use a number of her exercises, right? So the very first exercise is called physical destination. That is the idea that nobody is ever standing still or being in one place. We are always on our way somewhere. Even if I stop in the middle of the room to talk to you, and I stay there for 15 minutes talking to you, the truth is that as the character is not lost. The character is not suspended in you, because you'll sometimes hear inexperienced actors, especially if they're given direction on stage, just walk over there on that line, or just deliver that line from there and then go there. As human beings, that's not how we do it. I might be standing in the middle of the stage talking to you, but I know that I was actually on my way to the toilet. And that as soon as you're finished talking to me, I'm getting more desperate or whatever. That's not part of the play or whatever, but I have a reason why I am leaving, or the kettle is boiling, or I'm going to get a drink, or I'm actually on my way over to see what's my husband doing talking to that one in the corner, or whatever it is. I'm on my way. So you're never suspended. So that's physical destination is the first exercise. Then in that particular example I gave you off the top of my head, you'd have fourth side as well. Uta called the fourth wall the fourth side. So when you're on a stage, what is that's between you and the audience, because you've got the other three walls of your set here around you, or if you're on whether you're on stage or on set, you usually have three of the walls. And when you're on stage, the fourth one is the audience. Or if you're on set, the fourth one is a lorry load of cameras, makeup artists, other people standing around. And you have to be able to look out onto that fourth wall and be relaxed out there. And be like, know that there's a window there and a mirror there and that picture that you love there, and that you are comfortable out there. So that example I was giving, that's got that in it. Then it's also got all these physical sensations. So how do you recreate physical sensations, even if they're ones that you've never experienced? How do we access that? How do we practice it? What does it come? And like really briefly, for example, being drunk. Nobody who's drunk is trying to look drunk. They're usually desperately trying to stay focused on one thing in front. So for the actor, you access drunkenness by finding out what is it that you do to correct for drunkenness. And it is in doing the correction that you find the physical. If your hip is bad, specifically, which bit of your hip, where, and how do you walk in order to alleviate that particular pain, as opposed to a creaky knee, as opposed to a twisted ankle or an ingrowing toenail or whatever could be going on, Anyway, I'm rabbiting on. Sorry.
No, not at all. It's really interesting. And so you said, you teach it in 12 modules. You mentioned that she has 10 steps.
Well, there were 10 steps. It's the 10 exercises. Yeah.
Right. And do they
build on each other? Is that what you're going to ask me?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess what I mean is, when you get, are the 10 steps something that teach you the overall technique that are then kind of ingrained in you, or is it 10 steps or 10 things that you do when approaching every role?
Another great question, Frank. Okay, so again, I think I'm going to have to go with both.
Sure.
The exercises are designed to be worked on incrementally. So in other words, if you learn physical destination and what that's all about, and then you apply that as a given to the fourth side exercise, as a given to the changes of self exercise, as a given to the creating the outdoors, recreating the outdoors, to the physical sensation, to historical imagination, to talking to the physical destination element becomes absolutely necessary in all of those. And then as you go on, you're adding and adding and adding. So when you see one of the more advanced students, they will be doing maybe historical imagination exercise, which is about a historical character, but like an ordinary 3 minutes in their life, not anything from the play, and then that usually requires everything that went before. So they've come in and their clothes are wet. So you've got all that physical sensation, or the room feels like this, or they're touching things, their belongings, it's all the relationship with everything. Because as well as the 10 exercises, I mean, a lot of people have heard of the 6 steps, which are 6 questions to ask yourself before every role, scene, audition, whatever. Right. I find a lot of people know them, or at least think they know them. It would be around the who am I? What's my name? Where am I from? How old am I? What time of year is it? What's the weather like? Is it day or night? Is it 2:00 in the morning, or is it 2:10? It was Wednesday the 15th of June. Where have I just come from? Where am I? What do I expect to happen next? How am I in relation? When she talks about relationships, so she means all your relationships. So how am I in relation to myself in this scene? How am I in relation to this pen? What does this pen mean? Is it mine? Is it somebody else's? Did they leave it? Did I steal it? Did I borrow it? Do I have not a clue where it came from? Randall's Hotels, apparently. Truthfully, I haven't a clue.
So I'm getting the impression she was big into specificity.
Specificity all the way, and being grounded in your place. Place was hugely important to her. So that, one of the jokes about HB students, myself included, was that, you see, we'd be rehearsing these scenes and exercises at home in our own apartments or whatever, and then you needed to take with you to the studio the bits that you needed. So I'd have to bring my Randall's pen and this cardigan and that water bottle and whatever. You'd have a bunch of stuff that you would take with you to class. And we used to look like bag men and women.
Right.
A friend of mine, actually, she was trying, we had those shopper trolley things, shoppers on wheels. Every New Yorker has one of those. You can't go anywhere without them. But a very good friend of mine arrived into class one day. She says, "Oh my God, I'm after being nearly abused on the way," because she was coming HB Studios down in Greenwich Village, and she was coming from the East Village, so she was coming across the city, and she said she was passing this line of people, and next thing they all started having a go at her. She's like, "What the hell? I'm just trundling past with my thing." They were all in a bread line waiting for a charity handout. And because my friend, with all her bags and baggages and stuff that she needed for class, they thought that she was a homeless person and this was all her stuff.
So they thought she was skipping the line, or? Thought
she was skipping the line, and they're like, "Get back to the back of the line." And she's like, "I'm just going to class."
Gotcha.
This is, Now, the beauty of that, though, is that you get to the point where ultimately all I need to bring for my sense of place and everything is this one pen.
Right. So
I don't, the better you get at it,
you kind of tie it all back to something. Okay. And you touched on something that you mentioned to me before that I found interesting. So you were saying there you'd be at home rehearsing. Mm-hmm. And I know one of the things you said to me before about Uta Hagen was that she came up with the technique, or that she felt like she had developed the technique because she was trying to figure out how you work at home when you're not in the rehearsal space, or you're not with the cast. Or so how how
you did ask me that question ages ago. It's just I didn't answer it. I apologize.
did I? Oh, that's okay. Go on.
I think you did, in fairness to you. So yes, the whole purpose of why she created this approach, technique, series of exercises was that she herself as an actress wanted to be able to find ways to work on things that she had found were problem areas for her, or areas so that she could work on certain things before she ever got to the official rehearsal room,
right?
Or if she wasn't involved in anything.
And so, based on what you're saying, there is that work then that you're doing on your own? Is it all prep work and all to do with specificity and knowing place and where you're going? And I guess I'm asking, does it relate to the script? As in, sorry, of course it relates to the script, but I mean, does it relate to the actual text? When you're
actually starting off with the technique, there is no script.
Right.
You're not working on a script at all. There's no script. What you are doing is you start actually with a huge amount of self-observation,
right? Which
you and I both know, because we're a bit longer in the tooth of the old acting malarkey, that's essential. But I remember when I started out, and certainly when I have students in front of me, and you have this thing where they might have decided their exercises, they're just coming in from their hallway to their kitchen and they're making a cup of tea and they're going back out again. That's it. That could be the exercise, right? But I find that until they've worked on it and applied what they need to apply, they're making a cup of tea like they think they make a cup of tea on a Wednesday morning when they're rushing to work, or on a Thursday night before EastEnders starts, or whatever the hell it is.
Well, I remember because it wasn't an Uta Hagen workshop or anything, but I remember being in a workshop that Louis Lovett was giving, and his instruction to us was just come into the room and sit on a chair. And you think what? I'm sorry, what? But then, of course, you do it and you realize, oh, hang on, it's actually not as easy to just walk in and sit on a chair with all of these people watching. Yeah.
Yes, because you become self-conscious. So it is to be able to walk in and sit in a chair like a normal person in a private moment, as if there's nobody looking at you, which, of course, is what actors are trying to do all the time, whether it's sit in a chair or make a cup of tea.
So she's also then, it sounds as if it sounds like it's a technique that is also very focused on, in inverted commas, bringing yourself fully to a role.
Oh, totally. You see, I suppose my very first training was with at the HP studio.
Actually, let's talk about that as well. So did you hear about Uta Hagen and go, right, I'm off to New York to study with Uta, or how did you end up studying with Uta?
Well, nothing happens as in straight lines like that for me, Frank, in my no, of course not. I did a BCom in UCC, a Bachelor of Commerce Degree, and I had a marketing job in the UK, and I'd done all this sensible stuff, despite the fact that really I was desperate to have some kind of artistic or creative career. But truthfully, for me at that time, in my family, in Ireland, in those years, it just was like being an actor was not even on the radar. Like, forget it.
Sure. And when you say creative as well, again, I'm just curious. Like, did you know you wanted to try acting, or did you just know you wanted something creative?
I think I knew that I wanted to be an actor, but I didn't know that it was okay to want to be an actor.
Right.
And so therefore it wasn't really on the radar at all. The closest I came was I nearly went to Crawford to study, to do fine art.
Right.
But then the next watered down level of my creative pursuits was to do, let's do commerce, business studies, but let's focus on marketing, because that's creative, right? That'll be creative.
Sure.
And artistic, won't it? Yeah, not really. Not for me, anyway.
Sure.
So it was like way after the fact when I actually got a green card to the States. And when you got a green card, one of the Donnelly visa ones,
what's that?
Oh my God! Yes, you're showing your age now, Frank. there was a time there was a number of years and a number of rounds of green card visas that were given to Irish people to go. So
you applied for one.
Along with the rest of the country,
okay.
I applied.
Was there a specific reason you applied? At that
Everybody
point?
else was, and there were no jobs. There were no jobs in Ireland. I mean, I hadn't even I had gotten a job in England, and I applied while I was still in university for the green card, but it didn't come through for 3 or 4 years. And at that stage, I was in England, and I kind of spun it out as long as I could, changing from the US Embassy in Ireland to the US Embassy in England, and because ultimately, when you got your green card, you had to go, move.
Right. Okay.
3 months, you're gone, and so ultimately, that's what happened. The parents were still reeling. I owned half a house in England. I sold it, gave up my job, and announced that I was going off traveling and that I was starting in the States. So the plan was that I was going to travel around the States, and then I would start my world travels, basically.
Cool. Right.
The truth is, my world travels never got out of America.
Right.
I went all over on a Greyhound bus, all right, and ended up in Aspen, Colorado, ski resort. I arrived there in a pair of shorts, but anyway, because I was on my way. I was on my way to Mexico and South America and Central and South America. That was the plan. So I'd left all my winter gear in Boston. But then I arrived in Aspen and I thought, this is kind of cool, like a ski resort. How bad? And it was coming around to Thanksgiving. So I think I had about a week. Less than a week, I think, maybe 4 days before the prices of all the hostels and stuff would go through the roof. They'd go from being hostels to being kind of like, top of the range prices. So I said to myself, do you know what now? If I find a job and a place to live here now in the next 3 days, I'll stay. And I did. And I stayed. And while I was there, fast forwarding as best I can, I met a group of people called the Aspen Ridiculous Theatre Company, who were an improv group. So next thing I started doing improv, like whose line is it anyway? That kind of malarkey, right? Live. And then they organised for some big acting coach to come and teach them for a week. And I was like, who is this? Alice Spivak was her name. And Alice Spivak was this huge acting coach from New York who used to like to come on holiday to Aspen and stay with her friends and teach a class while she was there to cover all her expenses and have a bit of pocket money, whatever. So So I ended up in this class with Alice Spivak, and Alice Spivak had been taught by Uta Hagen.
Right.
So Alice was like, you've never done any acting before? And I was like, no, I did, like stuff in school and whatever, but no, nothing proper. And she said to me at the time, you should consider acting as a career. You should come to New York. And my big Irish head on me kind of went like, yeah, right. I bet you say that to all the girls type of thing. And completely dismissed her. And then a couple of months later, having realized that I was insanely jealous of my boyfriend at the time, who had labeled himself a dancer, singer, drummer, actor.
Okay.
And I was like, who the hell does he think he is? Like, now he was talented and gifted and amazing and all of that, but he had no what do they call it? Official, not the official isn't the word I'm looking for, but training, like...
Sure, yeah.
He hadn't been to any drama school. He hadn't been to whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, where does he get off calling himself this? I was apoplectic with rage. And it was only that stage that I realized I am insanely jealous because I want to be able to say, I am an actor.
Right.
I haven't quite around to saying singer, dancer, drummer, but I'm an actor. And so I rang up this Alice Spivak and I said, come here, were you serious? And she said, deadly. So at that stage, I just packed up all the stuff, came home to Ireland. They thought I was home. They thought I'd been gone about a year at that stage, about a year and a half. Maybe. They thought, okay, finally, she's back. She's found herself. She's organised. I said, yeah, I found myself. All right, no problem. But I'm actually moving to New York. I'm going to go to the HB Drama School and I'm going to be studying separately as well with Alice Spivak. Good luck. And off I went.
Wow.
And that is one of the beauties actually of the HB studio is that anybody, they have classes for every single level.
Right.
So like anybody who wants to study anything, from voice to scene study to technique to whatever, they'll have a class for you. And it is only when you get up to the kind of higher echelons that you have to audition for certain classes.
Right.
And they have professionals, can come straight from Broadway, well, there is no Broadway, but, at the moment when we want to work out, like I like to work out as an actor.
Right.
And it's pretty hard to do on your own. Now, thankfully, the Uta Hagen technique exercises it's almost like she designed it for these bloody times because you can work on it on your own, at home, alone. But separate to that, if you want to do stuff with other people, there are all these pre-COVID times. You would have really well-established actors would come back to HB in between roles to do classes. And if whatever level you're at, you can actually audition and they will place you in a class that's the appropriate level for you.
Right. So my brain has loads of questions and I'm trying to figure out which ones to ask. So I think the first one I'll ask is because you've kind of touched on it there about like HB Studio having different, being open to engaging with people at all different levels. So I'm really curious about in terms of the Uta Hagen technique. Now, I know that it must be good for beginners because I know that you do teach beginners and that you have taught beginners, and then obviously I know that you use it yourself. So I want to ask you about that in a minute, about like how you use it, and then so I just want to talk about a bit about, I guess, I think it sounds fascinating. If I said to you, should I learn the Uta Hagen technique? I mean, where I'm at. Roughly where I'm at as an actor. I wouldn't call myself, I don't know if I call myself. Basically, is it good for experienced? Is it good for experienced actors?
In short answer, yes, absolutely.
Right.
I have taught it in person a lot. In recent years, and the students, when I was setting up teaching it online, I went back to those students, for like, would you give me a testimonial or whatever, and they're fabulous. They all came back with a bunch of them came back with fabulous things to say, which was really nice. But I had asked them for feedback because I wanted to make sure, like positive, negative, whatever way it was. And one of the things I was interested in is, were they able to apply what they learned? And the resounding answer was yes, immediately.
Right.
So that as soon you did the very next audition, self-tape, role, whatever you're working on, even if you don't have physical tests, even if you've only the very first exercise done, you will find yourself applying it straight away.
Right.
And then you were asked the other side of that. So for beginners, when I look back now, I realize, and I've had loads of, it's not like I just use the Uta Hagen technique and there's no other technique. No, I use bits of everything. Of course I do.
Sure.
Because I never stop loving and loving. I never stop learning. More loving. I never stop learning, and I don't ever want to stop learning.
Yeah.
I love it, but it is actually in trying to describe the classes and trying to put it into bits on a website has really forced me to think about it in a way that I hadn't previously, and to realize that for me, I have been using it all the time, ever since I learned it. But it has become so ingrained in me that it is what I consider common sense now.
Right.
But it is my actor common sense derived from having done all the work.
Yes.
So it's just absolutely. Do I apply it? Yes, all the time.
And do you?
You want to ask me then whether it is good for experienced actors?
Well, let's come. So yeah, I know we're skipping all over the place now, but when you say it had, I suppose you're saying it had become ingrained in your process almost. Is that's kind of is that what you mean? Yeah. So when you look at that, is it ingrained in your process in a kind of a, I do A, B, and C, or is it more instinctual than that?
Oh gosh, I think it has become totally instinctual for me, but instinctual because the work, because I've done the work on it,
Yeah.
And then, I don't know if this ever happens to you, but if you have a piece of script that you can't, for some reason, you flub those lines every time, or you get a kind of a dodgy direction from a director. Now, this happens more on stage, but it happens on set too, to deliver it this way, or do that, or go over there, or be looking this way while you say that, or be, whatever, standing on your head while you deliver. And I have found the technique invaluable for helping me to navigate that kind of situation. You're kind of like, right, okay, I'm going to have to stand in the middle of the stage, do 3 turns to the left, 1 to the right, then stand on my head and then go off. Okay. Yeah. All while being in character. Okay, great. And I have found that I've been able to work out how to make that work for me. Like, right. you do your job. You have, like an actor's job is to deliver the director's vision. So that's what you do. But sometimes to make sense for yourself, like nobody need ever know what's going on inside your own head that made that work for you. But they'll know whether they managed to stay in the play while you did 3 pirouettes and a grand jeté or whatever, or whether they went, what the hell? What happened just there?
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, interesting.
The other thing you had asked me about whether it was good for experienced actors, and here's the thing. Of course, hopefully they would find some of it a lot easier. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that they may zip through the exercises quicker than a beginner might.
Because certainly, I mean, it sounds like there's crossover.
Oh, totally. Yeah. But it's helpful to sometimes to just have it. Unlike, I know you're a huge Meisner fan, as I am myself. But like sometimes to access what it is Meisner is saying, or to kind of understand it and to kind of put it into bite-sized chunks that you can break it down and apply it, is tricky enough, even when you have a teacher, an expert teacher to guide you. Uta's exercises, you can at least understand and start to work on your own.
Gotcha.
Now, ultimately, you will want a teacher to watch your exercise for you, and to see the moments in the 2 minutes, the 2 or 3 minute exercise you've done. I always say I prefer 2 good minutes than 3 mediocre ones, but to see the moment where you as the actor lost faith in yourself.
Right.
You didn't. Everything was fine until you went to the window, and then what happened there? And then Frank says to me, "Oh yeah, it's because actually when I was rehearsing it, the window was open, and I forgot to open the window before I start, or whatever. There'll be some little thing that'll have thrown you."
Sure.
And the suspension of disbelief thing will have just sort of puffed away for a minute. Like one of my things, when you're watching television, and my husband laughs at me now because as soon as somebody picks up a suitcase, my husband will nearly say, he'll preempt me going, "Well, there's nothing in that suitcase anyway."
Yeah, yeah.
Or the folding of laundry. They're like, okay, they're going to have a big ding dong. Like, let's give them something to do. They're folding laundry, and the most rubbish folding of laundry. I cannot abide it.
Anyway. Yeah.
Anyway.
Brilliant. I know I was going to ask you, my brain was full of questions a second ago, and of course now my mind has gone blank. What was I going to ask you next? So, I know what I was going to ask you next. I was going to ask you about the actual experience of like working with Uta Hagen, and just what was she like as a person, or?
Well, I get quite nostalgic. Uta died in 2004,
right.
And she had in 1996, at the age of, I don't know, was she 76 or something? She'd gone back on Broadway in a play called Mrs. Klein, and I got to see her in it, and she was a tour de force. And then she worked, she kept working, and she was amazing. Now, in terms of of being in her class, okay, so you know what? I hadn't. You said to me earlier, "Oh, did you just hear about Uta Hagen? Think, oh, I've got to study that." No, I didn't know who Uta Hagen was, or Alice Spivak, or anything. So I just followed the trail. So Alice said, "Come to New York, train with me." I trained with Uta Hagen. She teaches here at the HB studio. You should go and train with her. You get there, you can't just train. Back in the day, you couldn't just train with Uta. You had to earn the right to audition for Uta's class.
Right.
So that's what I did. I started training I did a full program of classes there, and ultimately worked my way up to the point where you had recommendations from other teachers, which meant that you could then apply to audition for Uta's class, and then you audition for the class, and you had to do, I suppose it was 2 minutes, maybe it was 3 minutes of a scene, and you had a scene partner. So I had a friend of mine, Elise Cogan, she wanted to audition as well, and I said, "I'll tell you what, we'll do a scene together and we'll both audition. We'll use the scene." And we auditioned using a scene from Carol Churchill's Top Girls, and it was all very it was so respectful, and this was like Ms. Hagen. Nobody called her Uta. Like, she's probably turning in the grave with me going on about Uta this and Uta that, but no, she was Miss Hagen.
Right.
So, you had your time, and from the minute you crossed the threshold, I think it was 10 minutes to get in, set up your stuff, do your scene, and out again, And HB Studio had this fantastic, I loved it. They had loads of set, everything on wheels. So there'd be cupboards and beds and doorways and everything. So you could easily recreate, for the purposes of these exercises, you could easily recreate your own bedroom, bathroom, living room, whatever you were trying to recreate, bus stop, whatever. So myself and Elise went in, and we had it pared down. We had one bench, a chair or something, I don't know, and a cushion. We did our scene, and Uta she'd scratch, you'd hear the pen, she'd sit in a corner at a desk with her dog and her cigarettes. Smoked like a train, and she had this the kind of voice you can only get really from smoking, I think, but that fabulously gravelly, kind of raspy voice, and she'd scratch away. And anyway, we did the audition, and she said, and you're thinking, she says, has anybody directed you in this? And we said, no. No, of course, we didn't even know what the right answer was supposed to be, but we said, like, no, we've just worked on it together like we had been taught. And she said, right, yeah. It's just that I hate this play. We're like, oh, Christ, oh, brilliant, we're screwed. She says, I hate this play, but you've done an absolutely brilliant job. You're both straight into the class.
Nice.
And then she said to me, and I want you in my advanced Shakespeare class as well.
Very nice.
So I know, it was, you know what? I mean, it's all these years later, Frank, and that's like one of the highlights of my career. I know, but it's kind of like, ooh, I was on fire after that. And then being in her classroom, the respect for the work. Like, you just knew that you were doing important work. Acting was important work, and it was taken hugely seriously, and we all worked really hard, and you wanted to do your scene every week, and not everybody got a chance to do their scene every week. And so you'd arrive early and you'd put your name on a list, and she'd work through the list of scenes, and if your name was on the list, but you didn't get seen that day, then you knew that you're going to be top of the list. Those last 6 people would be top of next week's list. And you'd finish, and she'd go, well, first of all, you'd have been listening, in your kind of, your ear would hear whether she was scratching out words or whatever on writing. And then she'd say, right, well, how do you feel? You see? And when I first heard this, I thought, oh my God, I haven't a clue how I feel. I don't know what's happened. I've just done this. I don't know what.
I'm Irish.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing, because she was a real believer in not what I call it, working through all your emotional baggage in class. The classroom was not a place for that. And that I heard her tell loads of people, she used to say this, she used to say, just go and have therapy. Just go, therapy, counseling. Go, have it. Tell me afterwards if you needed it or not. But have it first, and then be telling me whether you needed it or not. Don't come to class to kind of work through all your
sure.
Missing daddy, your lost whatever baby. So she would then, but the whole idea with how do you feel was, of course, to teach us self-analysis. So her whole technique is about self-observation and actually watching how you actually behave when you can't find your keys, and as opposed to what you think you do. And recreating that. And then in class, whether you were doing a technique exercise or scene study or Shakespeare or whatever you were doing, she also wanted you to first analyze yourself. You might be totally lost or whatever. In fact, if anybody wants to know what it's like to be in Uta Hagen's class, she has there's a 3-hour documentary available on YouTube, completely free for anybody to watch, which is Uta teaching exercise. I think it goes through each of her exercises and some scene study work, and it's just I've watched it numerous times, because for me it's like being back in the classroom. Sure.
Sure. Yeah. Well, amazing. Well, look, thank you Thanks so much, because I've learned a huge amount about Uta Hagen and her technique. And not at all, no, not at all. And fascinating to me anyway to hear how you actually ended up in the HB studio. That's really cool. So what was I going to say? I think I'm going to have to go and check out that documentary. I'm going to have to read. Would you recommend reading the first book first?
No. If you're buying a book, just this one.
A challenge
for the actor.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Now I look. Autographed.
Oh, nice. So. Yeah, so will you, because obviously most people will be hearing this just in audio.
Oh yeah,
so
sorry.
Pauline's just held up a copy.
We were on Zoom. I was showing Frank my book, which is a challenge for the actor, Uta's second book. So if you're fancy buying one of her books, go for this one. It's much easier to follow, and she certainly thought it was much better herself than the original Respect for Acting. Respect for Acting is a great read, but if you're buying one, buy this one. It's available on.
And then there's an inscription.
Oh, there's an
just
inscription.
Showing me.
Yeah, sorry. It says for Pauline, with my best love and profound, she has underlined it, admiration, ! Yours, Uta Hagen. June
Beautiful.
1st, 1995.
Beautiful.
Oh, don't lose the book.
Fabulous.
So, yeah.
And then, so if people want to actually know more about you and connect with you, where are the places
I have this fabulous website that. This My Site Actor crowd. I don't know if you know it at all.
I think I've heard of My Site Actor somewhere. Yeah.
So they built my website for me originally, and they've just recently added hugely to it, because I have a load more stuff on there, including the acting classes. So my website is paulineodriscoll.com.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And then in terms of maybe
there that says acting classes, and there's everything about Uta there. And I'm offering people a 15-minute free kind of chat Zoom call, so that if you have any questions, or if you're wondering, is it right for me, or is it not right for me, or I've done this, but I want to do that, or, let's have a chat about it and see what it is you want, and whether what I'm teaching might be of use to you.
Brilliant. And social media, do you connect to people on social media, or do you
I do Facebook. I have a Facebook page called, surprisingly enough, Pauline O'Driscoll. Actor and acting coach, I think it's called. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram as Pauline OD_actor.
Brilliant. I'll link them all up. I'll link them all up in the show notes and the blog post. Then, where do you? Just out of curiosity, what would your favorite platform be as an actor and acting coach?
Oh God! Look, it's so lovely to be in person, right? Obviously, I love that experience. But throughout the whole of this year, I've actually done a load of classes. I mean, where I'm the student myself this year,
right.
Because I realized that I needed it for my own sanity, to be actually working on something creative. So I was explaining to my husband that, doing an acting class or a voiceover class or cartoon voices, or what I've done loads of different stuff this year. That has been the equivalent of my night out, or my my girls' night out, or weekend.
So are you saying like literally, rather than kind of interacting on social media, you would much rather be doing a course or doing a?
Yeah, I do. I actually love learning in general, and so when I kind of like that feeling when you're in a class and you don't know what the hell is going on.
Sure.
And so for me,
I can totally relate. Myself and Marcy actually have to do like course moratoriums because we sign up for so many courses and we're like, wait, we have 3 lined up that we have to go through. We are not purchasing any more courses or signing up for any more.
Guilty as charged. But like for example, I've done marketing ones and different ones like that. But like, and they're great, but they don't. I don't consider them a gift to my soul, like working on an acting, some kind of an acting, some element of my like, voiceover is something new that I've been just getting into, and I've done courses on audiobooks, and I mean cartoons I did recently, and like that's like learning a whole new language, for God's sake, you know. Flap. Do you know what a flap is?
Not a clue.
Yeah, it's the hole through which an animated whatever speaks in cartoons. So if it's a spoon, it could be a little hole in the head of the spoon, or it could be, if it was a box, it could be the lid of the box, or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, listen, thank you so much. That was just fascinating. I really appreciate you taking the time. Frank. To come on and chat, and I will be chatting to you soon anyway. Brilliant. Okay. Thanks, Pauline.
And thanks a million for having me. And I hope I said something interesting.
You said loads interesting. Thanks so much. Cheers.
Thanks, Frank. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Be sure and check out paulineodriscoll.com for more on all of the incredible work Pauline is doing. And if you're looking for a quick, easy and affordable actors website, go to www.mysite.actor. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, connect with me on Twitter @FrankieP. And I will catch you next time. Cheers.